And we are live.
Excellent. Hello, bonjour, and welcome to the very first Fun with Films episode. I'm here with my good friend Pascal.
And I'm here with Paul. Now, I'm going to say finally. Finally, because looking at my notes, we've been talking about making this show since March. But life, work, and other things got in the way. But finally, this is episode 1, a monthly gathering for all friends and family to celebrate our love of filmmaking and our passion for all things cinema.
Yep, for the big screen and the small screen.
Absolutely. So, listen, we've done more checks than the Apollo 13 mission. We have a script written by Paul. I've got control with a mouse of the different moving parts of this show. And really, we want to have fun. We miss going to the movies together.
That's how this started, right? Mm-hmm. We got so tired of not being able to go to the cinema because that was our thing. We always went to the cinema. And obviously, you know, the world ended and we closed everything down. And it was kind of, how do we share our passion for movies without being able to go to the movies? And so, okay, we can talk about movies.
Well, what was happening, Paul and I would be on WhatsApp. I would get very sore arms on to hold my phone whilst we've been talking about movies for an hour, things we've watched, things we wish we'd seen. I'm kind of complaining a little bit about, you know, the impact of the pandemic, about movie releases being delayed. And little by little, I thought, you know what, this conversation has been awesome, lacking no modesty. And we should have recorded it. Maybe others will listen to it. Yeah. And then you said, well, shall we one day go live? You know about those things, Pascal, and then that's how it started.
Yeah, and all those conversations were great, but when you're watching a movie, sharing a movie, sharing the experience is just more special. The movie can be great, but when it's shared, it's even better. So that was the catalyst, right?
So we've been promoting this session for about a week. We've had lots of words of encouragement from friends and family. We thank you all. Really, you know, it makes it special. I'm checking quickly on Facebook, so, you know, do feel free to leave comments, suggestions, recommendations. Please understand, using the term of one of my business contacts, Joe Glover, this is a positively lovely show. You know, we're here to really kind of celebrate cinema. You know, we're not here to bash directors, actors, and so on.
We're representing.
Hang on a minute. What's going on here?
We're representing both sides of the coin here.
Absolutely. So, no, we're making our approaches. We're going to be just thinking about the good side of going to the movies. This is also a family-friendly show. So please leave your comments, in a way that is nice and can be read by younger people who are watching it with their parents potentially, because this is Fun with Films and this is all about getting together and celebrating once again what we love about cinema. So this show has segments. Yeah, we're using proper words here. And we're going to begin with maybe segment number 1.
Segment number 1, as I refer to my script, because I'm not the professional. So without further ado, let's throw open the auditorium doors. Let's draw back the red velvet curtain of awesomeness and find out what the Watchmen want you guys to watch. That was pretty cool, right?
I love this thing. I'm going to thank our wonderful editor, Tim, for creating this great little intro. So, Watchmen, because we have been watching things we would like you to watch too. Now, to begin, we wanted to be called the P-Men because of Paul and Pascal, but we thought that was perhaps not the right term. Much better than if you watched The Big Bang Theory. Do you remember that one with Sheldon saying that they could be called the Seamen because of Sheldon Cooper? So we are the Watchmen, and we are here to look after you and give you some recommendations about what you should be watching. So, well, let's begin with you, Paul.
It's all about hidden gems. Hidden gems. This segment is kind of not about maybe the things that everybody knows about, you know, the Game of Thrones and things like that. It's about the things that kind of take you by surprise. You watch them and you just go, yeah, why doesn't everybody watch this? It's fantastic.
So we'll begin with your first recommendation
yes,
section.
Sir.
So you're a bit of a Netflix nerd, shall we say? And all your selections today are from Netflix. Mine so happens to be from...
one isn't.
Oh, right, okay. Changing the script already. And mine are from Amazon Prime, a bit of an Amazon Prime posse, if I may say so. So let's begin with your first selection. What have you got in mind?
There was a wonderful, wonderful movie, I think, with the magic of technology. I'm going to have the little image up there. It's all new to me, this stuff. Kodachrome. As I've got older, I've really taken an interest in films about the dynamics of relationships and family, which, you know, when I was younger, it was just martial arts and action, but, you know, you change. And this was one of those films that I really kind of put on just because of Elizabeth Olsen is in it, the wonderful, you know, Scarlet Witch herself. And I think she's absolutely brilliant. And obviously Ed Harris is a legend. And I put it on, and it blew my socks off from start to finish. It was one of those that it gets to the end and you think it's been on 10 minutes. Essentially, it's based on true events, and if people don't know, Kodachrome is a type of film stock that I believe Kodak made. That.
My fault.
Gremlins.
I touched the phone.
Leave the phone. It's a type of film stock that Kodak made that it got to a point where they stopped the process of developing the pictures from Kodachrome, and there was very few places left in America that did this. And they announced that, you know, boom, this weekend will be the last day you can get Kodachrome film developed. So it starts a journey of Ed Harris, the photographer, to take his last reels of Kodachrome film cross-country to, I'll just double-check the name, Dwayne's Photography in Kansas, I believe it was, to develop these films. And he ropes in his son, and they have this broken, shattered relationship, and it's about them getting their relationship back on track. And Elizabeth Olsen is a carer for Ed Harris's character, and I won't give too many spoilers out as to why that is, but it's just wonderful from start to finish. The comedy, the humor, the drama, and the fact it is based on real events. I believe it was a 2010, let's get this right, New York Times article called "For Kodachrome Fans, the Road Ends at Kansas," that actually started off this whole process. And I believe this town where Dwayne's Photography is was actually overrun with people from all over the world and all over the US digging out these, you know, old films, because, you know, kids, there was such a thing as film, you know, not just memory sticks, and you know, film that belonged to their parents and their grandparents that just had sat and they didn't know what was on it. And it's wonderful. It's fun. The acting is superb, and I can't tell you guys enough to just go see this. Get on Netflix, watch it.
That makes me really envious that I don't have Netflix, as you know. That makes me really envious because, I mean, Ed Harris, my God, you know, and I love the way in which, you know, old actors are still able to work. I know that
and Ed Harris is fit.
Yeah,
he is fit still.
I know that the industry is not as kind, sadly, with older women as screen performers, and I think we need to rectify that. But those three actors there, a bit of a road movie, I take it, just from
very
the
much
image,
so. Yeah,
but bringing that humanity. Well, I'm really excited for Netflix subscribers. I'm not one of those, unfortunately.
What's your favorite Ed Harris movie?
No, you're pushing me, but only because recently I read again about The Abyss. I'm going to say The Abyss, but it's done so much more. We went to see a movie. Do you remember The Man on the Ledge?
Yes.
He was in it as well, and he played that vicious business, person so well. So, yeah, have you got a favorite one yourself?
I mean, he's good in everything he is, but I loved Appaloosa. I believe he directed that as well. I absolutely love that film, but I like Viggo Mortensen too. Snowpiercer, for all he wasn't the biggest star, plays Willard.
Yeah.
The guy that runs the train, he was very, very good. Obviously, The Abyss. It's hard. He's done so much.
He has done so much. So as I mentioned earlier, I am an Amazon Prime subscriber, and a few weeks ago, like many people, on Amazon Prime, I had the immense pleasure of being entertained immensely by the sci-fi adventure, The Tomorrow War. And if you haven't seen it already, maybe like me, you have gazillions of movies on your watch list. This is definitely a wonderful family entertaining movie. This is the one for the afternoon on a Saturday or a Sunday.
The whole afternoon.
Yeah,
it's a long film.
It's a long film. In fact, I would go as far as saying that I would have enjoyed it to be in 2 parts, because it feels like in the 2.5 hours that goes like this, they've crammed so much. So you can see from the post that Chris Pratt is leading an ensemble cast of many actually great actors from the big and small screens. But I love the adventure side. I love the sci-fi. It's also a lot of humanity. And if you don't know, the premise is that the Earth in the future, 2048, will be invaded by alien parasites, big, nasty monsters, and the people living in 2048 in the future travel back into the past for them, the present for us in 2022 to recruit soldiers, because all their soldiers in the future have died. And in comes in Chris Pratt and the ensemble cast, and it's just well made. And I was blown away that this was making the small screen. I know that the plan, Paul, was for this to be at the movies.
Yeah, definitely. It kind of got shelved with the pandemic and things. And to me, I don't know. There's only so many films I want to see on the big screen, and usually it's a spectacle film, an effects film, an adventure film. And this was made. It was the perfect film for the big screen. So it's a little bit of a shame a lot of people never got the chance to see it there. IMAX would have been amazing.
They're talking about a sequel, which won't surprise you. So I'll say no more, Paul, because I don't want to give. I mean, you pretty much give anything away by talking about the film. But the reveal of the monsters called the White Spikes is outstanding, isn't it?
Yeah, very, very much so. And I mean, there's elements of other movies in there. Well, so many other movies, little kind of nods to other movies, but all done very, very well. Where nothing's just ripping things off for the sake of it. It's just kind of like, yeah, we like that movie too, and we're gonna put a little bit of that in this. And usually that doesn't work. Usually they can't get it to work. It's too much of a shoehorned mess. And a film that long, to say that it holds your attention, it feels like watching, a half-hour movie, not a, 2.5 hour or plus movie. It's exceptionally well made, well acted, well executed, well directed. It shouldn't work, but it does.
It does
very, very well.
Like I said, for me, it's a sci-fi adventure. It is an adventure, and for the whole family to enjoy. So that's my suggestion for this week.
Go watch it.
Watchmen, formerly known as P-Men. So moving on with your next suggestions, you went for another Netflix.
No. It's sci-fi. Sci-fi channel, I believe.
So let me just bring the visual for you. Oh my God, look at this.
I love this. Me and my sweetheart, we loved this so much, and it was one of those released every week episodes, and it was so hard. Like, do we binge watch it? Do we leave it till it's all out and then binge watch it? But like, I can't wait, so I have to watch the episode. But then, oh my God, I want to watch the next one. I can't till next week. First world problems and all of that. But it's just wonderful. Alan Tudyk, the main character, the resident alien, is amazing in everything he's in. And he's in a lot of things where people don't even realize it's him. Does the voice, or he supplies like the facial expressions. Can you name one of those just before we move on?
Of
what Alan Tudyk has done, what people may not realize it's Alan Tudyk?
I think people know. I mean, it's been well documented. He worked on the Star Wars franchise, obviously. But many, many years ago, you got me a present, because Paul's very generous, actually. I get lots of presents from him.
I get nothing back.
And he was the Firefly DVD box set.
Yeah.
Which Denise and I probably binge watched in a space of a week. So I didn't sleep for an entire week, but Firefly was outstanding. And of course,
Wash. We don't go. I can't watch Serenity because of Wash. Poor Alan Tudyk. But yeah, I believe he was iRobot too. Indeed, he was the robot. Yeah, a lot of people don't realize that, but such a talented actor. And in this, it's the story of an alien that has a secret mission coming to Earth, and it's nefarious. I won't give too much away. A little nefarious mission. And somehow he crash lands in Roswell and escapes and makes his way to this small, picturesque, beautiful town in Colorado. And somehow assumes the identity of Dr. Harry van der Schmeegel. Yeah, even the name's funny. Basically, then he's thrust into human life and human interactions, and he becomes a doctor, and he has no idea about humans, about how they act, why they do things. He's like incredibly socially awkward with this strange little grin on his face all the time, and he basically just wants to eat all the kids. It's just so funny, but such a like a black humor. It's wonderfully done from start to finish. I can't describe how they've just got the tone right to not be too much, too crass, too dark, not to be too cheesy. It's just that wonderful humor and absurd situations that Harry van der Schmeegel gets himself in. And there's a young kid in the show that can actually is one of the only people that can see through his fake identity and see him as an alien. So the kid's trying to out him. He's trying to eat the kid or get rid of the kid. And he's trying to kind of piece his spaceship back together or find parts of his ship while juggling all these interactions. And obviously the character starts to change a little bit, and he starts to see humans in a different way. It's fantastic. It's originally based on a Dark Horse comic strip as well, I believe.
Surprise me, yeah.
And I hope they're going to do a second season. I'm pretty sure they will. It was very well received. Everybody in it's fantastic, but it's funny as all hell. Please watch it.
Yeah, excellent. And if you have seen it or want to, do leave your comments in the section below this video. So I'm going to carry on with my kind of journey of recommending Amazon Prime features, and this one has been on my watch list forever. It's one of those where you keep seeing it and you go, no, I'll watch something else instead.
Is it one of those that you never feel in the mood for?
Yeah,
but you should.
Well, actually, it's more Denise is never in that, so I always have to understandably. Although I have control of the gadgets to come.
He's couch commander.
Yeah. But here it is, just going to blow it up for people. What a film. And I almost feel bad that I've not seen this earlier. So, Chef.
I have. I recommended it.
Favreau, John Leguizamo and so on is just incredible. And it's a joyous experience in terms of this chef.
It's another road movie, right?
Yeah, quite. Was working in the top restaurant in Los Angeles, but feels he's lost his way, feels he's not able to be creative. It clashes with their food critic, the wonderful Owliver Platt, and just has to start from nothing again by pretty much getting an old banged up food truck and rediscovering his love for cooking, and also the love of the social environment with in the public, because he's been hidden in the kitchen for such a long time, by creating a return to the Cuban food. And there are scenes where he's cooking those cheese and cooked mixed sandwiches.
Grilled cheese sandwich.
Oh my world. I mean, don't watch this film if you've not eaten yet, because you're just going to raid your fridge afterwards. But the story, when he's traveling from where he picked up this food truck and repairs it, all the way to back to Los Angeles for celebrating, obviously, his return to form. He's reconnecting with his son, he's reconnecting with his ex-wife. His partners are also finding a renewed passion for everything. And it's just a wonderful movie about humanity.
It has that same vibe as Kodachrome in that, there's that reconnection where there's a little bit of broken relationships there, and similar theme.
Similar theme, man. And in this one, it's also the message around, can we sometimes be stuck in where we are in terms of our profession, and we don't see anymore that we've been taken off on a tangent.
It's also that kind of, you're stuck in a system. I mean, in restaurants and chefs, there's an ordained system that actually the food truck culture in the US broke away from. And the main reason that happened is because chefs were so tired of being stifled by the system. No, you can only do this meal because that's what my clients will pay for, or my clients like. Yeah, but where's the creativity? Where's the artistic flair of creating food? And, the character, Jon Favreau's character, plays that to a T of not having that love for food anymore because he's bored of doing the same old thing. And just to steal some thunder back to Netflix, this is a semi-autobiographical story. Jon Favreau's character really is a reworking of a guy called Roy Choi, who is the guy that trained Jon Favreau for chef, but he was one of those real-life chefs that was instrumental in pushing the food truck culture in real life. And if you do want to switch across to Netflix real quick, and watch the chef show, it's Jon Favreau and Roy Choi hanging out together doing the food thing for real. And it's kind of like a follow up to the movie. It's brilliant.
Yeah, I'd imagine that. I mean, what a talented guy. I mean, we know Jon Favreau pretty much rescued the Star Wars franchise and has worked
genius
on the Marvel Studios movies as well. Interestingly,
Happy?
There's going to be some cameos of some of your favorite actors in the Marvel universe. So watch that for that. But I think for me, what was lovely, it's just one of those where it's going to be a remedy for when you feel a bit down. So this is now going to be on the shelf alongside the School of Rock and many of my pick-me-up movies because it's joyous. The music is amazing. The traveling through obviously parts of the Hispanic, kind of cultures and hubs. They go to New Orleans as well. The way the kid is just, is a marketing mastermind, and it's because Jon Favreau, remember, plays a character who doesn't understand, a bit like you, frankly, Twitter and social media and so on.
They go and get those little pastry things in New Orleans, don't they? What were they called?
Oh, les beignets, yeah.
That's it. I was trying to tell Denise about that. There's an episode on the chef show where they cook them together. Le beignet. And it's so funny because I spend the whole show cooking them. Spoiler alert. So look away now. And they make them and they try them at the end of the show and they both go and they look at it and the pastry's out of date. They haven't checked. Yeah, it's so funny because it's kind of just like them goofing around, hanging around, going, "What we're going to cook today? We'll do some of them le beignets," and they haven't even bothered buying new kind of pastry mix. And it's funny. It's funny because of that.
What is interesting is a movie which is about the two passions that we have in life, movies and food. I mean, like I said, feel very guilty that I've not seen this before, been on the watch list forever.
Shame on you.
Yes.
Shame.
Now, what is your final selection for today?
The Highwayman, back to Netflix. This is one of those movies that really went under the radar, and I don't know whether that was because it was made by Netflix, so they kind of control the release of that, or maybe it wasn't allowed to be released on the big screen or whatever. But it kind of went under the radar, and it didn't really get much fanfare. And I will watch Kevin Costner in anything. I can sit and watch Kevin Costner stare at a wall. The guy's amazing. I love his warmth and humanity and that kind of everyman persona. And obviously Woody Harrelson is amazing, but essentially it's a much more accurate and real portrayal of the hunt for Bonnie and Clyde. And everybody probably remembers, or of my generation, the old movie, the 1967 movie with Bonnie and Clyde. And that was very much a Robin Hood story, where you wanted Bonnie and Clyde to get away, and they became anti-heroes, as it were. And the lawmen were almost portrayed as being bumbling buffoons, and actually the real story is very, very different. And this is the story of the two main Texas Rangers, which were ex-Texas Rangers, because I believe at the time the Texas Rangers were disbanded. Yeah. There was no such thing anymore. And they brought these two back kind of begrudgingly. They didn't work together. They didn't know each other. They brought kind of Kevin Costner's character first and recruited Woody Harrelson's. And they were kind of just living their lives. They were retired. They were out. And their job was to find Bonnie and Clyde. And it was of a time when, police procedures and connection between police officers, you had to send a pigeon to tell people that they're over there. They basically had the whole of America riding around in this little car and didn't even know where to start looking for Bonnie and Clyde. And Bonnie and Clyde had a big network of friends, families, well-wishers that were helping them too. And you see the real story of how they figured out where they were going to be, which bank they were going to hit, and you virtually don't even see Bonnie and Clyde in the whole film. You kind of see their legs, or you see this and you see that, and a lot of it is hugely accurate. There's one scene at the very, very beginning where Bonnie gets out of a car and you can see she's got a bit of a limp and her leg's injured, and actually she shoots somebody, and the real events that crashed their car just before that happened, and she got battery acid on her leg, and you don't see that, but the detail is there. The detail, the work that's gone into portraying details that you don't even see in the film. You just see a glimpse of it and you have to know. That kind of thing I love. The interaction between these two aging characters that have to learn to work together. They're on the road. It's a road movie. They've got to find Bonnie and Clyde against all of the odds, and how they do it, and how it comes to the point where they've got to make a decision that they can't catch these two. They have to stop these two. And it portrays Bonnie and Clyde as they actually were, as deranged killers, and it's just wonderful from start to finish. The supporting cast, Kathy Bates, and everybody in it is brilliant. I loved it.
Super. Well, once again, something that I'm very envious and can't wait to see for myself. What I like, once again, it's back to my comment earlier, which is, actors of all ages are working thanks to the streaming services. As much as you and I are missing the big screen, and we will find a way to get back to it and look for the spectacle movies, but the way in which all those different brands, from Netflix to Amazon to the BBC to Channel 4 and so on, Disney, they just are creating work for both the production team, but also for the screen performers. So that's just amazing. All right, so final selection for this segment, The Watchmen, is a fun, dark comedy with Kate Beckinsale called Jolt. And you're in for a shock, you're in for a laugh. Honestly, this is just what you need once again on the Saturday afternoon or an evening where you just feel like having something that's going to entertain you, that would be, you could argue, almost forgettable, because it's just very, very silly. But you can tell that all the actors have had a well of a time. So Beckinsale plays a character who has uncontrollable anger issues. Literally, if you get on her nerves, she will assault you. And there's some moments where sometimes she's thinking about it. So there's a famous scene in the trailer where she's in the underground, and this guy next to her is eating a sandwich very loudly and spreading his legs. And she literally grabs a sandwich and shoves it in his face. And how many times have we wanted to do that? She's
all the time, I think. Have you ever been to the cinema with him? He's eating too loudly behind me. Nailed.
How many times have I embarrassed you when I even asked to change seats? Do you remember that time when we changed seats, but then because the seats were allocated, I created like this kind of mayhem where people couldn't get into their own seat. Do you remember? The whole cinema was just in complete disarray because I didn't like the seats that had been given to us. But so with Jolt, the only way she can control this anger and not attack people is to wear a vest with electrodes, and she can press a button, and literally she gets a jolt, and everything comes down. And she's supported by the wonderful Stanley Tucci, who plays a doctor who is afraid of her. It's so funny. so he's literally looking after her, holding a gun, just in case she attacks him, until she falls in love. And love cures everything. And by falling in love with the character played by Jai Courtney, suddenly the anger goes away. But unfortunately, otherwise it wouldn't be much of a story, her lover is killed. And she just literally goes on this rampage. She takes off the jacket. She doesn't care anymore. And she goes on this all-out kind of action fest, hitting people, stabbing people, shooting people, using her anger almost as a superpower. And it's just delightful.
Yeah. I haven't seen it yet, but it's on the list.
And what is lovely, Kate Beckinsale plays a British character.
Yeah, I have seen the trailer for it, and it's nice to see her with her actual voice.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, that was supposed to be a very brief segment.
No, we'll have to learn to perhaps keep it short in future. Tell you what.
We're having fun with films.
You mentioned the term trailer.
Trailer.
Which gives me a wonderful segue for our next segment. it is time to
We're
take a sneaky
professionals.
peek at what's coming on a screen, big or small, near you. Okay.
Wow. So this is where we look at something up and coming that we and hopefully you will be looking forward to seeing. So do we roll VT, Mr. P?
Let's go. This is this week's trailer.
Throughout my life, the 10 rings gave our family power. If you want them to be yours one day, you have to show me you are strong enough to carry them.
You are a product of all who came before you. The legacy of your family. You are your mother. And whether you like it or not, you are also your father.
I told my men they wouldn't be able to kill you if they tried. Glad I was right.
You're just a criminal who murders people.
Be careful how you speak to me, boy.
I thought I could change my name, start a new life. But I could never escape his shadow.
My son, you can't run from your past.
Is this what you wanted?
You got this.
Thank you.
Jab, left foot, right hook.
Well, anyway, what a trailer.
Wow.
So, yes, some of you know us very well. Of course, we had to choose a martial arts film. Of course, we had to choose an action film and indeed a Marvel production. It kind of summarizes what we like. We like movement. We like, I mean, you and I have trained, you were my sensei for many, many years. So we like movement, but with a strong human, centered story, though.
Yeah, violence in martial arts movies is all well and good, but if it doesn't have any morals or any heart or any reason for it, then maybe it's not so good.
So, are you excited about Shang-Chi?
Yes. The expansion of the Marvel universe or the cinematic universe has just the last couple of years become phenomenal. The depth and the web that they are weaving with storytelling is absolutely fantastic. And I vaguely remember Shang-Chi from being a kid, from comics when I was a kid, and it was one of those actual characters that kind of dropped off the spectrum, as it were, and it's lovely to see that they're not just going with the ones that everybody knows and they're bringing them back. And what do we know? What do we know about Shang-Chi?
Well, listen, for
then?
me, when I was younger, my mum used to buy me the comic books for being well behaved, but also
I never got any.
In the 70s, we could buy Titans, Strange, and Marvel. There were three.
Yeah.
But the frustrating things, that they would stop on a cliffhanger, and you had to wait the following month or the following week. And I think my memory is confused between Iron Fist and Shang-Chi.
Yeah.
But what do we know? Well, this is a character that was introduced in 1973 during the Kung Fu craze. I mean, 73, the year of Enter the Dragon.
It was
Bruce Lee.
on the back of Enter the Dragon, really, the popularity, wasn't it? The explosion of Eastern culture, Eastern martial arts in the Western world. They kind of like, well, we need a hero with this background, and that was a catalyst. Yeah.
So
little known fact. I don't know if you know this. Stan Lee tried to make a series in the 80s of Shang-Chi, and he wanted Brandon Lee.
Indeed, yes. There was conversations. And those conversations carried on. So the reason why we should all be excited is I don't think this is a one-off. I think we're going to see the characters over many movies. You will see, all of you, some correlation between the Iron Man of 2008 and this one, where the character is introduced, where he has to confront his seniors, as the way in which the character of Tony Stark had to do. But yeah, in the 80s, they spoke about it. In the 2000s, Stephen Norrington of Blade fame was also considering creating, the character. And then years later, 𝗵𝗵𝗶 was involved, Ang Lee was involved. So you can tell that this was a serious undertaking. And in 2006, Marvel Studios said, yes, we will go ahead. But my goodness, the fan had to be patient because that's 15 years later. And once again, a movie that's been delayed twice now because of the pandemic.
I wish they'd done it earlier, but I'm kind of pleased they haven't, because it feels like now's the time. Now's the time they can make the movie with the right people, in the right way. Special effects have caught up to what they want to show, and if they can't get it right now, they're never going to. And what do we know about the main star, 𝗬𝗵𝗲 𝗪𝘂? I know him from Kim's Convenience, which is another Netflix show. If you haven't seen it, it's very funny. He plays Jung in that, and I believe this is his first real starring role in a main movie as the leading man. He's fantastic in Kim's Convenience, and I believe he has a martial arts background, taekwondo background, or hapkido, and he's very personable from his earlier roles, and I believe he's got the acting chops to pull this off, and obviously a physical background. So I'm really looking forward to see what he can do with good choreography and a good stunt team behind him.
Yeah. So very quickly, I just need to open a little, I was saying friends bracket, just to salute the work of the stunt team that was headed by the late Brad Allen. So we've got a bit of side news to share. It's been documented, and we will put in the show notes the links to the many tributes to Brad Allen, who left us far too early, and it was instrumental in creating the action for this scene. So thank you. We miss you. I know your friends and family will do too. And we wanted to kind of give that message out. But back to the actor, I really like the fact that it needs to be somebody that we're going to care for and that we want to cheer on. And something tells me that this actor and this character is something that that would be the case.
He can do it all. There's times watching him on Kim's where he isn't the main kind of comedy element of Kim's Convenience. That's the guy that plays his dad, Mr. Kim. See you. But he can do it all. He's warm when he needs to be. He can be very brusque, and he can be quite angry when he needs to be. I think he's going to be fantastic. We've also got Awkwafina in there. She's probably going to be the comedy kind of sidekick, I would imagine, in this movie. A bit like maybe 𝗬cie, you think?
Yeah, I would imagine so. Maybe. I mean, the Marvel production team, everybody that's been working on the other movies are present, apart from Jon Favreau, but all is forgiven because, of course, he's working on the next season of The Mandalorian and the book of Boba Fett. But so what is interesting, this is not a well-known director, and I love the way the Disney, by extension Marvel Studios, are giving younger directors who maybe are not a long track record just a chance and a crack at it. And I think the director that is in place, who came out very quickly, Destin Daniel Cretton, is done movies which are, again, very, very strong about the human element.
Very drama-based, I don't think he's done an effects movie like this. It's more drama-based, so I do believe he will have the human element in there. And we have the main bad guy, Tony Leung.
I mean, for people who enjoy, Hong Kong action, just going to put this in the middle for our viewers and listeners, this is like so good. I mean, Tony Leung and Michelle Yeoh, who clearly do not age ever.
Nope. It's weird. Vampires.
They're just going to provide that wonderful backdrop and supporting characters to allow the character of Shang-Chi to go on its journey, that would only be completed to a point by the end of, I'll consider this one to be Act 1. But it's going to be just joyous to see those really experienced actors bringing them to the fore. Michelle Yeoh is not in the channel audience because of Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. Many of you will discover Tony Leung for the first time, and you're going to be blown away.
It's the Bond movie as well. She kind of Tomorrow Never Dies.
Tomorrow
I think
Never
it was.
Dies, yeah.
That was where she really got her big US break. But anyway, what about the story? What's it about? What is Shang-Chi? Was a martial artist trained by his father, which at the time, originally in the old comics, was Fu Manchu.
Yeah,
that's who the Sax
was kind of
Roma's
a
Fu
giveaway.
Manchu.
You already knew that. Well, he was a bad guy.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
and who was up to nefarious, I like that word today, nefarious dealings. And he was trying to train his son basically to be a killer for him. And at some point, it was kind of switched from him being Fu Manchu to him being the Mandarin.
Yeah.
And I'm not really sure whether it was, they just switched it because they didn't want to be associated with another character and copyright issues, or whether it was a case of, Fu Manchu was a Mandarin all along, you know, plot point. So and it's essentially Shang-Chi's father, the Mandarin, trains him, and there's a disassociation. Shang-Chi goes out into the world to find himself, and essentially, as you'll tell by the trailer, basically just starts hanging out and drinking and having fun and doing the normal stuff, and then he's brought back into the world when his father wants him to kind of fulfill his, sonly duties, his destiny. But in this time, Shang-Chi's decided he's a good guy and doesn't want to do it. And his father, the Mandarin, is the master of the 10 rings, which in the old comics were finger rings. But in this, they seem to have made it like the kung fu training rings a little bit more. And I like that. Sometimes I don't like it when they change things too much, but I think that's actually quite inspired.
Because visually it's going to be far more interesting, and it has elements of that training side.
Yeah.
Back to that, we're going to see, I think, an enormous amount of wushu. I've detected Michelle Yeoh doing a bit of Xingyi, maybe.
Yeah.
So, of course, if you're a martial arts practitioner or just a martial art movie nerd, you're going to get your feel in a kind of Asian action style.
Yeah, the rings themselves each have a power, a little bit like Thanos's kind of power stones, but I'll not go into the details of what they do, but together, it makes him a very, very dangerous guy. And from the comics, the Mandarin himself is supposed to be one of the world's strongest martial artists and fittest guys, kind of like a bit like Batman is in the DC universe. But he's also, a flawed genius as well. So he's got kind of Tony Stark's intellect. He's got the rings of power, and he's got the physicality. So just because, he doesn't have a superpower, he's not somebody to take very lightly. And they've been hinting of him in the background all the way from the original Iron Man with, the Mandarin's flag on the wall when Tony Stark was captured. So he's kind of like, they've been very, very clever in the fact that they've kind of made a puppet behind the scenes for such a long time. And obviously the Mandarin was outed as being an actor in Iron Man 3, but then they did that one shot, All Hail the King, where they kind of fixed that plot hole, which was quite smart. So yeah, we're going to have the whole, is Simu going to take over and take the rings from his dad and be the good guy, or is he going to be the bad guy? And
it's that wonderful journey of the prince who, feels he should be loyal to his king, his father, and the kingdom, but also discovers by getting out and abandoned a bit more that there is more to life, but also the world needs protection as opposed to
a hero.
Dominance. The other reason I'm excited, in addition to, we spoke about the technical side of the production team and so on and so forth, I'm excited because I don't think this can be a one-off, just to humor the fan, because there is little hints, of course, on the trailer, but if you take the trouble to read things like IMDb and Wikipedia, where there's elements, or the actor Benedict Wong, who was in Doctor Strange, it makes an appearance.
Yeah.
Of course, for like a fraction of a second, There's a hint about Abomination being in there. So it's all linked, and you can't do that if you've not actually taken the challenge of this is going to be a series that will have at least 3 to 4 different episodes.
I mean, Wong from Doctor Strange is in this. What's he doing there? Why is he there? Where are they having this big fight? Is it mandripo from Falcon Winter Soldier? Is that where they are? Abomination, Blonsky, Tim Roth, you know, is kind of being brought back, which is amazing for him. And I believe he's going to have an appearance in She-Hulk. So there's so many kind of crossing interactive threads that makes it so much richer than just the story we're watching at that time. And Abomination's amazing. I mean, kind of like when Hulk ended, I was like, yeah, but what's going to happen to Abomination? I like it. He's brilliant. You know, give me more Blonsky. I like Tim Roth. So I think it's great that, you know, he's getting a second crack at it. The other thing about, obviously, the rings of power as well. Originally in the comics, they were rings from an alien race that were kind of like dragons. Yeah, 𝗵𝗵𝗲, I think it was, the dragon. So those rings fitted on, you know, the dragon's finger, which actually is quite clever how they're now the size of a forearm. That makes a lot of sense. That's quite cool. But they were kind of rings of technology and power to help fly their spaceships, and the Mandarin's supposed to have found them and stole them. So I don't know if that's going to play into the movie or not, but that's a little bit of the behind the scenes.
That could be part of what Shang-Chi will discover over the course of his journey. Because not like the One Ring that keeps shrinking or expanding depending who wears it. You know, the One Ring from Sauron. This is obviously from a different universe altogether. So listen, we kind of it was difficult to choose one trailer for this particular segment.
I think we need to do one each next time, though. We've been talking for nearly an hour.
and I think this is a fine choice to present what we like about the movies, and it's also just wonderful in terms of what it would. So let us know in the comments below whether you're watching live on replay. Are you excited? Are you a bit nervous? Are you really pleased to see Tony Leung and Michelle Yeoh on the big screen for an international audience? And where do you think the story might go beyond, the legend of the 10 rings? Okay, and then what is coming next? Because with regard to Iron Man, which I do believe there's going to be a kinship of sort, there's the character was followed through for quite a while.
I don't know whether they'll go down some of the routes that Shang-Chi actually did, where I believe he was Avengers and West Coast Avengers. I mean, are they gonna team them up? You know.
Yeah, absolutely.
But the fun part of it is I have so many options, and that's fantastic. I'm excited to see where they go.
Yeah. So we always asked the question: do you think, all of you, that this will be box office gold or Titanic turkey?
Yeah. Will it be relegated to the Razzies, or will it be Oscar worthy? What's your prediction?
It can't be the Razzies. I think this is going to do very, very well. And it's going to probably start a new fan following. I can see podcasts being created, YouTube channels being created around the universe, because, to your point, there is so much to explore that we don't know about. But please understand, this is not just a whim. This character has been in existence since 1973.
70s, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely right.
He's got legs, got a heritage.
Absolutely right.
All right, here we go. Next segment. Part 3. This is where we take a seat in the imaginary chair of interrogation. And we put the spotlight of doom on each other when we ask each other today's big question.
All right.
These stings are just amazing.
So what this is about is, in advance, we prepare one question. I'm going to ask Paul one question. You're going to ask me a question, but we've not revealed or shared what the question is.
It's about, because I know Paz quite well. He knows me quite well. It's about letting you know who we are, really.
Absolutely. So, we've known each other. We just remembered today, 20 years.
20 years, yeah.
I met Paul 2001. He, at the time, was a sensei and was running an Aikido club. And I've been studying martial arts for pretty much since my teens. Started with karate wadoryu. Then when I moved to England, did Laogar Kung Fu. Then I moved again. I keep moving. I did 𝗤𝗏 and so on and so forth. And my younger brother Joel was doing Aikido in France, and I went to see him once, and I was blown away. Plus, I love Steven Seagal. So I thought, this is a man that can make me look and act like Nico.
You know what happened? He kicked the doors of the dojo open, and the wind rushed in, and it's like, you! I want to fight you!
So at the time, you had a bit more hair.
Yeah.
In fact, you had a ponytail.
I had long hair at the time. Seagal.
20 years ago, I had a lot less weight on because I didn't eat as much cheese. But I've got one question for you. So here it is. So when I watch movies, or particularly when I watch animation, I always think, oh, they look like this person I know, or they sound like this person I know. I don't know if you do the same as the listeners. So are you familiar, Paul Gray, with the Pixar animation Ratatouille?
You know what? I haven't actually seen it.
You're kidding.
I've never seen it. No.
How is that possible? No. Well,
but I'm going to have to now,
Ratatouille is like Chef, but in the world of Pixar. So you have a young chef who goes into a restaurant in Paris to learn to be a super chef, and is introduced to the staff.
Is he a rat?
No, well, the rat is his guardian angel. So the young man is called Linguini. He has a rat on his head. He's hidden with the chef's hat, and the rat does all the cooking. It's amazing. I'm doing a very bad job. But so this question may land, on deaf ears, because you won't know that when Linguini is introduced to the staff, there is one member of the cooking staff that I'm going to argue, well, looks a lot like you. And I'm going to ask my viewers and listeners if they agree that that's
him.
Yeah, him.
Him there. Hang on.
It's got the little kind of facial hair stuff going on. It's got the short hair. Now, this character is kind of stroke half French, half German. It's called Horst. And he claims in the Pixar animation, and the fans will know it, that he can kill a man with his thumb. And in fact, at one time, the kitchen, the restaurant, is threatened of closure by the health inspector. And Horst walks towards the guy and just presents his thumb with him as a threat. So with all your martial art training, to question number one, perhaps to you and to our viewers and listeners, do you feel like you look a little like Horst? And is that a fair, if you were to be an animation for Pixar, is that a good job? And can you kill a man with your thumb?
First, I could see where you're getting this, but my sweetheart, in loose terms, actually says I look more like, I'm trying to think which one it is. Is it Steve Christmas, the animation?
I don't think I know this one. My turn to
she'll put it in the comments. I'm sure it's, what's the Christmas animated movie?
Nightmare Before Christmas?
No. I can't think of the name. It doesn't matter. But I can see it. I can see your point. Can I kill somebody with my thumb? Do you remember the movie The Presidio?
Yes, I do.
The Presidio with Sean Connery and Mark Harmon. Oh, yes. There's a wonderful scene where Sean Connery goes into a bar and a guy kind of makes his mouth go, and Sean Connery uses his thumb to punch him in the kidneys, so it kind of like digs in real deep. And it was one of those things that I always wondered if it would actually work. And I did do that to somebody when I was training one time. I kidney punched them with my thumb, and it kind of hurt like crazy hell. So I don't know if I can kill them, but I certainly could hurt them.
Well, just let you know that Alan Aganovich is watching as well live. Thank you very much, Alan, for your support today. And anyone that's trained with Paul, anyone that has also been, his client for his health and fitness center, will know that he has a habit of shoving his thumbs. You call this acupressure.
Thumbs of doom.
Yeah. And people have complained, although they do say that the results speak for themselves. They do feel better afterwards. But
yeah, it hurts like crazy hell, but it fixes.
Now, frankly, I think every part of your body is a weapon for you.
Every part?
Yeah.
I mean, like, this is supposed to be a PG show. Every part? Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much. Really. This was my big question. So
right.
What is yours, Paul?
All right. So I'm going to set the scene.
Set the scene.
We're in a bar. Oi, Pascal is in a bar far, far away. It's a little rowdy. It may be on Tatooine. Now, Pascal's lonely and he's been on the galactic internet to find himself a partner. It's called Star Tinder. Now, he hasn't seen this person, but they've messaged and talked on Star Tinder, and they get on great.
Oh, God.
And he's sitting, waiting, he's got his little flower, so sure, you know, the person will recognise him.
Waistcoat, 'cause no,
and his waistcoat and cravat, monocle, fez, smoking jacket, everything. And his date walks in for the night, and it's Jar Jar Binks.
Why?
Who looks like this.
Why is it Jar Jar Binks?
Because I want to know, my question is, where would you go for your date? Why? And what would you do when you go for a date with Jar Jar Binks?
So to begin with, I don't mind the character Jar Jar Binks at all. I know that, you know, people who watch the prequels really have a go at the character. I don't mind at all. It, you know, really makes me laugh. So, I mean, obviously, where would I go? Well, we know that he has terrible manners, so I wouldn't go in a restaurant because I'm sorry, but I would be far too embarrassed. I think, to be honest with you, just to kind of keep him quiet, I would take him to a bar where they play loud music, like a live band, you know, maybe like a cross between a cantina and AC/DC, kind of make it work somehow. So Highway to Hell, played by the musicians at the Star Wars Cantina.
It's
so
not very romantic, I must say,
well,
Pascal.
no, but, you know, I've got to deal with what I'm being thrown into the situation here. So that really we can't talk. He doesn't have to talk too much and eat, so that it doesn't get on my nerves. And then I will find a way to, you know, jump on the first flight out of Mos Eisley. And
you were going to run and dump Jar Jar.
I would, yeah.
Dude.
Even though the character doesn't bother me at all in the prequels.
All right. Well, one thing we've learned about Pascal there is he's actually very, very nice and very sweet. Because most people go, I'm out of here.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that was fun. So for all of you, if you have big questions for either Paul or myself,
that's where we want to go with this. Ultimately, we want you guys to actually comment, write in, or just before we go live, kind of next time, give us some questions, things you want to know.
Absolutely. So, you know, that's the idea behind it, because, I mean, I've got a long list of questions, and since we're here on a monthly basis, I've already had the next year covered with silly questions to ask Paul. Now, it is time to move on to our next very special segment, actually.
Yes. This is now where we get to take a ride on the DeLorean of dreams when we travel back in time. Now we get to fondly gaze in the rear-view mirror and look at some of the films that actually made a big impression on us when we were kids or when we were younger, or we just have that nostalgic feeling about when we think about, and it's about the classics of cinema.
Yeah, and for this one being our very first episode, we thought it would be really fun to pick a movie from the year we were born.
It was hard to narrow it down when we thought of doing this. It was kind of like, well, my God, there's thousands. So yeah, doing that gave us a little window to pick something.
Absolutely. So the year for me is 1969.
He's got to go first because he's older.
It's 1969, and there was quite a few classics, but the one that I actually want to watch again very, very soon, bear in mind, you know, the work we've done today.
How many times have you seen it?
I would say 3 times, but a long time ago. And I feel like now that some may argue against that, but I'm a more mature person, and I've got the eye and the mindset of a filmmaker and so on. I want to watch it again, and this is my selection for today from 1969.
Wow, yeah. It's one of those that if you haven't seen it, do not call yourself a film fan. It's
got everything. I mean, this is, you know, an important movie. I mean, one could argue you could watch it and go, yeah, whatever. But this is a movie that, amongst many others, started this kind of new movement, new wave, whatever the term you want to describe, where people told a story a bit differently. And it wasn't necessarily to, kind of turn their back to the filmmakers of the 40s and 50s. It was just saying, we have new techniques. We've got a new way of looking at things. We are also influenced a lot by popular culture, and let me tell the story a bit differently. And this is the ultimate kind of buddy movie. It's another road movie, you could argue. It's also one that introduces the concept of the anti-hero. So, Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid are buddies. I mean, they rob banks and they're up to no good. But somehow you can't help but really feeling yourself engaged by the characters, almost like what Princess Leia would say, scoundrels. Yeah. So they're kind of up to no good, but you can't help but like them. And they are on their quest really to wrap up this life of crime. They're making their way to Bolivia with bags full of money and so on. And of course, it's not going to go according to plan. And the bickering and the exchange, but also you as a viewer wishing them to succeed in their quest for redemption and a new life is just delightful. And can I just say as well, for something made in '69, the photography is exquisite.
Yeah. I mean, the whole film, obviously based on real life characters, real life bank robbers. So we will say that. Loosely based, but there is some factual events in there. And if I remember rightly, I read somewhere at the time, it critically wasn't really accepted because the filming techniques and the whole section in the middle where they go to still photography rather than actual filming was so new, and people didn't really get it. It was so out there. You look at it now, it's kind of I don't see what the problem is, but it was so out there from your standard westerns. People didn't really get it. But it opened the door, like you said, to a whole new wave of how to tell a story. And that, I remember seeing a documentary about that, how they created those still images. They had to superimpose our heroes into these old-fashioned kind of film images. And the technology for that didn't really exist at the time of making this movie, and they had to find a way to do it. It was quite groundbreaking. But I mean, just look at, you've got Robert De Niro and you've got Paul Newman and Robert Redford in the same movie, and oh my god, I mean, they're just amazing.
But to your point, you made me think,
amazing.
The last time we got that exciting was Robert De Niro and Al Pacino in Heat. That was the two correlation here. So I mean, I'd forgotten that this had been released in '69. I'd forgotten about its importance. I mean, not the only one, but in that kind of switch over from '60s to '70s, many of the directors that we now love and appreciate. So these were the formative years of Francis Ford Coppola, of George Lucas, and many more. And this was someone saying, I tell you what, I wonder what would happen if. So they became more curious, more adventurous, as opposed to what was happening in the 40s and 50s. Again, because they were locked into the studio mentality as well. There was no, you couldn't experiment because I was wasting time, resources, and money.
It cost money, right?
Yeah, and many others came from the background of journalism. And so, I was delighted to be reminded that this movie came out the year I was born, and I just can't wait to watch it again.
I mean, Paul Newman's one of my all-time favorites anyway. The guy can do no wrong. He's just
both of them
amazing. And I remember when I was watching this when I was younger, I didn't really take to Robert Redford. I was kind of drawn to Newman, and it's only years later that I kind of enjoyed watching Robert Redford more. But when I've gone back and watched this movie now as an adult, Robert Redford's fantastic. Every single scene he's in, he's so funny. He's so funny. And it's one of the early kind of buddy movies that really did it well. They did it so well. And
that's it, yeah.
I think the camaraderie of the two actors shines through. There doesn't seem to have been any animosity between them on set. And that shines through with the two characters. And it's wonderful. I mean, what's your favourite scene? Because there's so many good scenes in that film.
I mean, oddly, it's the simple ones where nothing much is happening, and they're on top of the hills, behind rocks.
Are they watching the horses?
Yeah. And you kind of go, that would almost feels like that's what two mates would say to each other, or the way they would act with each other.
It is so natural. It is so natural. I don't know how much of it was ad-libbed, if at all, but it feels that way, certainly when you're watching it. Me, it's the scene when the train blows up, the explosion. I remember watching it the first time I ever saw it, and I was kind of like, because it's so visceral. I'd never seen that before. I'd never seen an explosion on film that looked like it was going to take the actor out of their boots. You know what I mean? You could feel it while you were watching it. It was one of those. It's just, even now, you watch it now and go, wow.
Yeah. Particularly that what they had. So what is your selection for Back in Time?
Coming to my birth year, which is 1974. Mine is the biggest movie of that year in 1974. Again, with Paul Newman, The Towering Inferno, and
I love it.
Oh man, it wasn't the first, but it was certainly became the biggest of the disaster movies, the classic disaster movies. You've got Paul Newman and you've got Steve McQueen, and it was a bigger pairing than Butch and Sundance. It was bigger than, Newman and Redford, because Paul Newman had a few more years on the clock and had become a bigger star. But McQueen, his star was on the rise. I mean, he could do no wrong, and he'd become so popular that he had basically more power than the studios at the time, and what he said, he pretty much could do. And just to put those two in a movie, let alone all of the ensemble cast. I mean, you've got William Holden, was it Faye Dunaway?
Yeah, they're all there. Do you know what's remarkable?
Sinatra.
Frank
Sinatra.
My goodness, yeah. What was fascinating, I mean, this was on TV at least twice a year.
Every Christmas. Every Christmas.
You watch it, and it was almost like the one you mentioned, the Poseidon Adventure, all those. You knew exactly what would happen to all the different characters. They all played different archetypes. I mean, this was the screenwriter's kind of perfect, way of telling a story. And you still watch it till the end, almost wishing that there would be difference. But like watching Titanic, you know what's going to happen, but you can't but watch it. And for the days, again, the practical effects, because there was no way you could CGI this stuff. And the suspense and again, the back and forth between the two lead characters. And I think it's also started this idea of height and the tower. So don't tell me that this has not influenced Die Hard, for example, and many other movies.
Yeah, I believe the writer of Die Hard had a dream after watching The Towering Inferno. Wow. And that's how he came up with the original idea. He watched it one night, was like, yeah, that's really cool. Went to bed and had this crazy idea of the same movie, but with villains taking over the tower rather than a disaster. So it was highly influential, but it was based on two books as well. I think I've got it written down, The Tower and Glass Inferno. Two books kind of influenced this movie. But what was really kind of exceptional about this film was that they put two of the biggest stars in it, plus such a big ensemble cast, and it kind of paved the way for everything we've seen since, like The Expendables and all those wonderful Oceans movies, the ensemble cast, where it wasn't just one real big star surrounded by a few kind of jobbing actors. It was big money on screen. There was two directors as well. Gilliman, was it? John Gilliman. He did most of the dramatic scenes, but they pulled in Irving Allen, who had done Poseidon Adventure, so he had the experience of the stunts and the set pieces, and they got him to film all of that. And it was, again, it was a break away from the normal studio way of doing things. It was very, very inventive and early. And I believe it's the first movie ever to be produced by two studios together.
So it's trying to share financial resources and whatever.
That had never been done before.
Again, the 70s, I mean, we are 2 years away from Star Wars and all the other stuff. So for me, what was really exciting is the sense of real dread, I mean, I know that when you watch it now with a 2021 mindset, you kind of go, the acting is a bit hamish, and it's a bit, these people
How dare you, sir?
projecting their voice and that kind of thing. So dialogues or the vocabulary is very, very dated. But if you look at, the way in which each character understands what the journey is, both in terms of the external but also internal motivations, and some of them, of course, don't make it to the end. That's part and parcel of the sense of peril. And I think, to me, it's also this sheer amount of discomfort that they've gone through with that one or Poseidon Adventure, where people were already becoming a lot more physical. As actors. So whereas in the past you would have had, forgive me, a man wearing a wig trying to be the woman that jumps in the water, and here they are in full view, falling into the water and that kind of thing.
Well, I mean, it was a big turning point for actors becoming more powerful or as powerful than the directors in the studios. And you had Paul Newman that was he wouldn't shirk away from anything physical, but Steve McQueen was famous for basically wanting to do every stunt himself. He was absolutely famous and insistent and had it written in the contracts and things. And in this film, if you notice on the poster, they've got kind of equal billing. They had an agreement where they would have the same amount of lines. It was the same amount of lines, had the same amount of set pieces. If one was doing a stunt, the other one had to do a stunt, and it had to be equal. And the famous scene where the staircase is broken away and there's a metal rail hanging down and there's just nothing but a huge, great big drop, which none of that was done with CGI. They created the set, and to make it look like kind of a shaft that was dropping down this building, they had a painted matte image, underneath them. Well, that whole scene is actually Paul Newman falling from the railing and then climbing back up. And it was remarked at the time for a guy in his 40s that, there was no stuntman on set that could have done it any better. He was very physical. And Steve McQueen did injure himself doing one of the many stunts he did. Jumping out of the helicopter at the beginning, he damaged his ankle, I believe, and subsequently had to do quite a few sets sitting against a wall playing the fireman. But that kind of physicality where you could see it was them, this broke the mold with that and paved the way for Tom Cruise to do it now, and very famously for actors to be more involved and put themselves at risk more, because in the stunt world and in the film world, we watch it and go like, oh my god, that looks scary, but it'll be all safe because they're on a movie. And often it wasn't that safe. Going back to Butch and Sundance, in the end shootout, there's a little scene where they shoot a guy from the top of a wall and he falls off, and that stuntman broke his hip and his back doing that fall. People got hurt, and these actors were insistent on doing it, and it just for our entertainment, and it kind of does make you think, the people that are just going, it didn't look very good, or
I know.
These guys some of them get paid a lot of money, but they put themselves in harm's way for our entertainment. I
mean, there's two things that I know and I subscribe to. This statement about any film made is a miracle, because it's hard. You and I had a for several years in film production, so we understand it even more than most. But I'm just that wired that way. I always think that any film that I watch, there's always something that you could appreciate about it, and it's more the case of it wasn't right for me, or wasn't in the mood, as opposed to it's complete rubbish. But I think back to the 60s and 70s, which is what we're doing today with Back in Time. It's just that initial the changing of the guard, but still paying respect. So this is filmed very well. They're still using the framing, they're still using the rule thirds and the color, kind of themes and whatever that they would have learned from people working in the 40s and 50s. So I don't think it was anything untoward or kind of this unruly enfant terrible of the cinema. It was just more like we've got new gear to play with. We've got actors who want more and actresses who want to do more, and let's continue to entertain the audience. So Fine choice.
Was also, just before we finish, for all it was a disaster movie, you know, it's kind of like an action movie of the day. It did very well critically as well.
Yeah.
It won, let's get this, it won Best Cinematography, it won Best Editing and Best Song. It was nominated for Best Picture, and Fred Astaire was nominated for Best Supporting Actor as well. I mean, who knew? The guy can sing and dance, but he can act as well. And it was the biggest grossing film of 1974, and often put back to back in cinemas. You know, you'd watch one, then you'd have a little break, and then you'd watch another, 2 movies back to back for the price of one. With Earthquake, I mean, can you imagine that? Watching Tower and Inferno and then Earthquake, your nerves would be shot by the time you came out. It was wonderful. I love it. Every year at Christmas, Tower and Inferno.
Yeah, absolutely. And what is lovely that we can appreciate that remastered version for both of those films in 1080p 4K now. So just absolutely brilliant. Now,
it is time. It's time. It's that time where we get to riddle me this, riddle me that.
so welcome to the Film with Films quiz. This is your turn now to take part to. We're going to ask you some questions, whether you're watching live or on replay. Just leave your answers into the comments. So what we do with each of those episodes, monthly series, we choose a theme, we choose a topic, and we use that as inspiration to come up with 3 questions each. That's 6. So we're going to take it in turn.
Can do math.
Yes, I can, as long as it's single digits. So we're going to take it in turn. We're going to ask you 1 question each. You're going to take your time. We're going to play a little something for you.
Hang on, no, they'll be on Google, won't they?
No, they won't. They don't like that.
No Google allowed.
They can't do. You can't just be on Facebook and Google. There's, nothing is. You can't do that at all. So what we're going to do is, this is all about. First, this is all about new beginnings and so on. These are the kind of themes of today, this being our inaugural episode of Fun with Films. So, well, Paul, off you go. Ask your first questions to our lovely audience.
Let's have a look. I've got a little list here of questions. I think we will go with, what movie showed the first flushing toilet and what year?
God, you've gone there, haven't you?
Yeah.
This is very lavatorial.
The first toilet to ever be flushed on film.
Okay.
And what year?
Well, yeah. All right.
Two-parter.
So do you get 2 points?
Yeah.
One for the film, one for the year.
2 points.
All right.
If they get it.
My question is, well, many of you will know that Steven Spielberg is my hero. I still have to write to him. I keep putting it off because I just get embarrassed when I think about it. But so Steven Spielberg started, like many filmmakers in the 60s and 70s, by working on TV. And he directed 1 episode of a very famous detective TV series. So what is the name of that famous cop series that he directed just 1 episode as he was making his way towards, obviously, fame and prepping Duel and Jaws? Okay. Next question for you.
So this is my number 2, but number 3 total. What was the first film to use a cell phone? A handheld cell phone, and you can bonus point it. What year? What year?
Okay. My question is as follows. Who is the first woman to have won the Best Director Oscar?
Good question. Finally, what is the first film to be released on DVD format and what year?
You're getting double points with you. You're very generous today, aren't you?
Yeah.
You're only going to gain 1 point with me.
Oh, yeah. This is what I got to work with.
So my final
harsh.
question, that will make it 6. What is the title of the very first Pixar animation? It's not Ratatouille, because obviously, even you're seeing this.
I wouldn't know.
So these are the 6 questions. Just to give you a moment to think it through, do some research, speak to friends and family. We're going to play a little something, and we'll be back.
We're waiting.
If I could save time in a battle, the first thing that I'd like to do is to save every day till eternity passes away, just to spend them with you.
Are you guys seriously this calm?
Relax, Stewart. It's classic switcheroo. I give him money, he gives us Teddy.
You ever do anything that doesn't end up in a standoff, Chow?
I'm an international criminal. It always ends like this. I met my wife at one of these things.
You have a wife?
Yeah, we married 15 years. What, Chow not good looking enough for a woman?
No, that's cool.
Let's do this.
Welcome to the Tower Club.
Blah, blah, blah. Who cares? Stop. Chow crossing.
You gotta love Chow.
Mr. Chow. Because we wanted to keep it obviously kind of PG-13, we couldn't show the first one when he comes out of the back.
We maybe try to blur little bits out.
Yeah. But then you have to bleep all the language. There'd be nothing left of that
true.
scene. Yeah. All right. So I hope
Chow.
I give you enough time to reflect and ask questions, or maybe if you're that way inclined, Google it. So question number 1, Paul, was, and what are the answers?
The first toilet flushed on film was Psycho.
Psycho.
1960. Can you imagine before that, if ever anybody was in a bathroom or a toilet, it didn't flush?
No, but actors before the 60s didn't eat, sleep, or go to the loo. That was a known fact. It's a bit like a D&D game, really.
And maybe it was one of those kind of things you just didn't show it on film. It was unsavory. I don't know.
Yeah, I would imagine so. And then fast forward to, what was that? Fight Club.
Yeah.
And then you knew everything that was going on in the toilet.
Yeah.
So question number 1 for me was Steven Spielberg directed one episode of a very famous detective TV series. And that was Columbo.
I was going to go with Columbo. It's the only one I could think of from that era. I didn't know, but I would have guessed.
There you go. So if you thought Columbo, then give yourself a point. If you knew they were Psycho, give yourself a point. And if you knew the year, that's another point for you. Question number 2 from you.
What was the next one? The first film to use a cell phone or a mobile phone, if you are English. Do you know? What do you think? What'd you guess? It's hard because we seem to have had them forever, right?
I know that in Lethal Weapon, he has obviously a portable phone when he's ringing.
That was it? Lethal Weapon?
Is it right?
Yay!
Oops, sorry. Shouldn't do that on a microphone.
1987?
Wow. Yeah, but it's literally it's got a battery on the back of the car and he's ringing saying, I don't want that guy with me.
You got to go to Gold's Gym to use your phone.
Oh, I'm very surprised by that.
Yeah,
excellent. So for me, the first woman to win the Best Director Oscar, Catherine Bigelow. 2001 for The Hurt Locker. So 2 things.
Yeah.
Delighted that there was a woman that won it, but shameful that women should not be celebrated before 2001.
It took so long. Right?
Just that message, she's great, and that's part of the quiz. Catherine Bigelow, if you know it.
Favorite Catherine Bigelow movie?
I'm sorry, it has to be Point Break.
No. That's wrong. It's wrong.
It's not.
Near Dark.
Not Point Break.
Oh, man. If you think Lost Boys is good, watch Near Dark. Came out pretty much same year. But that's a real vampire movie. And the late Bill Paxton, Lance Henriksen. Oh, my God. You saw her directing chops right then. But Point Break came after, and it's fab too.
Yeah. No, I would agree. So the next question from you was?
What was it? The first film to be released on DVD format. Again, we seem to have had DVD forever, right?
So actually, my co-host Roger Edwards on Two Geeks and Marketing Podcast and I have
Hello,
covered
Roger.
this news. Thank you for the support, Roger. So unless our source of information was incorrect, we announced as part of Two Geeks and Marketing Podcast.
Is it going to be right?
It was Twister.
It was Twister.
In 1996.
96? I mean, it feels like longer. I can't believe that Twister was the first film on DVD. It's like, wow, yeah, cool. Right, last question.
So for me, it was, what is the title of the very first Pixar animation? So can you hazard a guess?
You know what? I don't know because I get them all mixed up.
Yeah,
I don't know what the difference between Pixar and Disney and this and that and the other is, but...
There's a difference.
Was it Toy Story?
It was.
Yay! Yes, in your face.
So another point, another point for the year then.
Not that I'm competitive or anything, but...
So now that we know that you are like the character from Ratatouille, you should know about Toy Story, and the year was 1995, if you knew that, the answer to that.
That's what he'll get if I get it wrong. Right.
Well, listen, sadly, this is the end of our very first episode of
thankfully.
Fun with Films. And we wanted to be online. Sincerely, when we did the prep, what did you call it? You didn't call it the prep.
I can't remember now.
During lunchtime, Paul called it the preppage.
The preppage, yes.
So during the preppage, we said an hour and a half because we had X amount of segments and we're still finding out our ways around the technology and also the durations of the information. But wow,
How long have we been going?
We've
Any
been
idea?
going online for an hour and 25 minutes.
That's perfect. We said an hour and a half.
We
We're
did it,
professionals.
Yeah. So we're not going to, announce the welcome though, and we're going to wrap it up with some sincere thanks to all our supporters and well-wishers. We had a couple of people joining us as well today. So you get Paul, Roger, Alan.
Thanks, guys.
My family as well from France was asking for subtitles. Budget can't stretch that far.
I'll talk to them very, very briefly.
Yeah.
Nerd.
So, that's the idea behind it. But so we want to do this on a monthly basis because Paul and I talk about films all the time, but we thought using structure, also for me to discover new ways in which we can use, the wonders of the interweb. We just want to kind of spend some time with you, say hello, and get you to have fun, including quizzes and so on. But it is also, by extension, your show. So if you have suggestions, recommendations, if you want us to review movies, if you want us to react to trailers, then do put them in the comments below.
Even just ask our thoughts on something that you enjoy. What do you think about this, guys? You know what we didn't do, though? I never got to use any sound effects.
No, but that's one thing too many for me to think about. So just out of interest for those of you who like live production, we're using Ecamm Live as the feed. We've got the Rodecaster Pro with the microphones linked up, and we've got everything fed through the internet. And the sound effect, which is what Paul wanted to play with, is for next month because there was lots to learn.
Just to go into a little bit of the backstory, Pascal is the tech genius, and when he was just talking about the microphones and everything, all I heard was like blah 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 blah. And basically, because I'm such a monkey when it comes to tech, I couldn't do any of this. He gave me the job of pressing a button, just like kind of over here, that made some sound effect, and I didn't even get to do that. I probably would have done it wrong anyway.
Absolutely. So you're kind of the Sam Neill of...
I'll take that. Sam Neill's cool.
So in Jurassic Park, so long as you don't touch anything, Paul.
Yeah.
In fact, I was very nervous when you hovered over the keyboard there.
Yeah, but I'd just like to say thank you to Pascal for making all of this happen, because this is one of those things that we were kind of, this would be cool to do, but I could never have made it happen. He did. So if you guys enjoy it, make sure you thank him too.
Paul, viewers and listeners, it is time to bring down the curtain. Today's show is now over. Let's bring the lights up. Let's bring the empty boxes of popcorn back to reception, and we want to thank you and hope to see you next month. It's bye from him,
and it's au revoir from him.
Why is it always so hard to open the DVD, honestly? See, I told you you could kill a man with a thumb.
Tech guys.